So, hi everyone, and welcome to this live session with the team at Work for Impact. I am Beatrice, head of social media at Work for Impact, and I will be your host today. If you don't know us, Work for Impact, first of all, is a big corporation and a platform where purposeful freelancers meet purposeful organizations that want to grow and do great things together in the world. If you want to know more about us, head over to workforimpact.com. But here today, we are here for another purpose. We are meeting purposeful organizations that will share their story with us, and possibly this conversation can help many and to inspire many in their journey of making an impact. So today with us, we have Natasha Tucker, Executive Director at Mind Your Plastic, a nonprofit organization based in Canada committed to fight plastic pollution at many different levels. And in a few seconds, you will hear more about Mind Your Plastic directly from Natasha. There you go. Hi,
All
Natasha.
Right. Hi, Beatrice. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. And thank you, Beatrice, for having me. I'm so excited to spend the next few minutes chatting about what Mind Your Plastic does and what it's like to work for a nonprofit here in Canada.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as I said in the introduction, like Mind Your Plastic is fighting plastic pollution at many levels, but specifically in Canada, in the area of Canada. So tell us a little bit more about what you guys do and what are your objectives, and tell us your story.
I'll tell you all the things.
Yes.
So Mind Your Plastic has been around for a little over 5 years in Canada here. And our main goal is to end plastic pollution in Canada. So we do that a few ways. I like to call it like the three-pronged approach. So the one way being through municipal policy change. So advocating for, our municipalities to take ownership through adopting policies that will either see a reduction of single-use plastics or a transition to a new material that could have better environmental impacts. And one thing in particular we're looking at is a plastic-free events policy, where all these events that take place specifically in the summer that create a lot of waste when we think of all the cups and the cutlery and all of that stuff, how we can provide alternatives to what is considered the norm right now from a policy perspective. So that's one way. And then another way is through working with Canadian businesses. So as we all know, it's not easy to be a consumer right now. Hey, so I think we're all trying to do the right thing, but what is the right thing? And, businesses, I like to think most of them have good intentions. However, good intentions can often be lost on a consumer when there's so many different, words out there that may sound good, but might not actually be good. I'm looking at you, compostable plastics. So really through our work with Canadian businesses, we're helping them find better alternatives that suit their needs as well as consumer needs, because it's not a simple transition. But then also helping to educate those businesses, their team members, their staffs, to inspire plastic-free alternatives in their day-to-day lives. And then our last prong or leg of the stool, if you will, is through direct action and educational programming. So one in particular, one program that I like to shout out is our Circular Economy Ambassador program, which actually just started on Monday. And this is our annual program that sees students across Canada engaged in, cleaning up of their communities, whether they live near shorelines or, in the prairies of Saskatchewan. So they're cleaning up their communities, but outside of that, they're learning about why is plastic pollution bad and what they can do about it, whether it's advocating for more cigarette butt disposal stations or asking their local businesses to switch to reusable cups or various things like that. And then with a goal of diverting their findings from their community cleanups from landfill through partnering with local organizations who can take those hard to recycle pieces that they're finding and turn them into something new, thus, demonstrating the importance of a circular economy. So that's one way. And then, of course, through webinars and workshops with the general public and businesses and schools. So that's a bit about what we do in a 3-minute nutshell.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, it's there are tons of activities, and it's a very 360 approach. Also, I'd like to quote like another guest that we had a few months ago, Emily Pendit, said there's no silver bullet to tackle the plastic issue. So and you have to, and we share this also with another guest, that he said like there are many ways, and plastic it's really around us, and to tackle this issue we need to talk with many different people and many different stakeholders, and I love what you guys are doing in that sense, because you're actually trying to create education and awareness about this issue, like at many different levels, from governments, like the most important part, to the kids, and hopefully they can raise with a better awareness on how to handle this very important issue.
Absolutely. And it's been so interesting, as you said, like, the broad spectrum of people who are invested in this issue, and even the Circular Economy Ambassador Program last year when it first started, it was intended mostly for high school students. But we had such a strong interest from teachers that we even have kids as young as 5 and 6 years old learning about this in their classrooms. So, that's very telling in the sense of, people want to be involved in this, and they know that it can be a bit of a doom and gloom topic if you let it, but there's also a really, there's a perspective of, wanting to band together to make this change. It's such a massive challenge, but how can we overcome it? And it is possible. It's just, it's like you said, there's no silver bullet. There's no one size fits all approach. It's just, it takes a bit of adapting and trying some new things here and there, and some trials and tribulations, but together we can definitely all overcome it.
Yes, of course. So, but then specifically to your role and what you're doing, I know that like working in a nonprofit could be really, really challenging, like at times. And I would really like to know about like, what are your main learnings as an executive director of a nonprofit organization? What are your takeaways and the things that you have learned and you want to like share with us?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing I didn't know before coming into this role, because this is my first executive director role. I've held many like management roles and things like that throughout my career, but stepping into this role, it's so much diverse than what I expected, which for me is a really great thing. I think many people in high level leadership positions, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but I know for myself, I get a bit bored with the same mundane every day the same. So one thing I truly value about this role is that no day is ever the same. And I find I spend so much of my time connecting and talking to people. And, I see even our organization, Mind Your Plastic, as a bridge between various people involved in this issue, whether they're plastic producers or end of life recyclers. And I very much enjoy that, that constant learning, because I'm certainly not an expert in how you make plastic. So that's been a big challenge for me in a way, is having to adapt communication and, put my own feelings aside when speaking with people who might be on the other side of the issue, right? So they have a very different approach to plastic pollution and the issues at hand here. But it's never a negative experience. It's always a really, really great learning opportunity to be able to hear from the various experts in their respective fields. And but again, albeit a bit unexpected. Like, I mean, that seems kind of like an obvious thing that you would do in this type of role, but it was just something that when I took this on, I didn't necessarily think about how difficult it might be when you're such a passionate advocate, but then you're spending a lot of time talking to people who are passionate advocates on the other side.
Yes.
So a lot of diplomacy, and it's been really interesting, but I've met a lot of incredible people along the way.
Yeah, I think that like listening, it's always a good way to get the other people point of view, but also this can help you also and help the organization obviously to know how to tackle and deal with them. So maybe you can kind of try to understand what are their point of view, understand their also difficulties, challenges, and so and use them, not use them, like, or at least try to bring them like in your direction.
Yeah, well, and I think that's like something that often is perhaps forgotten or maybe not valued as the perspective of people on the other side is, call me naive, but I like to think that we're all in our positions and believe that we're working towards the best case scenario, whether, again, I might beg to differ with someone who's on the producing side or whatever it may be, but you can't overcome a problem unless you know what the other side is facing too. You can't come to a resolution together. And that's really what, I try to do with Mind Your Plastic, is to have all parties involved and have everyone feel heard. And even if I don't necessarily agree with your point at face value, I still want to know, so that can also help fuel our solutions, because a solution that just undercuts the opposing side is really not a true solution. And it's just going to be a short-lived thing that causes tension and whatnot. And, I'd like to think that we can work on these things all together. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a great way to overcome issues. Like I love it. So and you said also, we can say that we said and we mentioned the good and the bad and the good things. Do you want to add any more good things?
Oh, there's so many. Again, like I like I said, there's the challenges, but the good is, again, all the amazing people that I've met, whether they've been, my own team of, staff and volunteers and board members that I just truly love working with on a regular basis. They're, truly what keeps me going is when you have such an engaged team. And I find, for me, I've spent a lot of time working in corporate, in retail, and also a lot of time in nonprofit. And one thing that really stands out, and why I keep, and I am so passionate about working in a nonprofit, is because people feel so much differently about the work that they do. And that's a stark difference. I've worked at 2 to 3 nonprofits versus 2 to 3 corporations, and the morale is different. The people who are applying for the jobs are applying for the jobs because they care about the mission. And, you just end up with a whole different dynamic, versus, in perhaps your retail or food service industries, where people are there, because it's a paycheck. And that's not a general, or that is a very general statement, sorry, but, and it could be very different, but that's just been my experience, where I really love working with a team of very engaged advocates. And that's been my experience with nonprofit work.
Yeah. So, and this lead me kind of to the next question, which is like related to team and skills.
Mm-hmm.
Which you kind of answered to this question already, because my next question was, what skills are necessary to work in a nonprofit? But then, and also, what are the traits that you're looking for when you're hiring and when you're looking for a new team member? But it seems that really people are really willing, and they come to Mind Your Plastic and they offer themselves to work for you guys and with you.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I always like to say, you hire for attitude and train for skill. So that's something that someone said to me many, many years ago, and it's really stood out. And because I think that is so true. You can have so many people come, and want to work for you, and they might have the best resume ever. They have so much experience and whatnot, but again, with a nonprofit, it's a bit different than corporate. Again, funding is sometimes a challenge, especially for a newer nonprofit or a smaller nonprofit that perhaps may not have the brand awareness to secure large grants to keep them going, or funders or whatever it may be. But, when you have a team and a person, that joins your team who is really engaged and passionate about the mission, has strong communication skills, And also, one thing that I have in all of my job descriptions is, a good sense of humor, because with nonprofit work, especially in the environmental space too, again, from my experience, it's just things are always changing. And, as much as I'm a big fan of, consistency, sometimes you just have to roll with the punches a little bit, and what you might have wanted to do, what your goal was for the year out might change drastically depending on a variety of things, like what's going on in the environmental space, or, what's going on with your funding. So for me, it's very much about, are you passionate about the cause? Because again, if you're pulled in a few different directions, sometimes that does happen in nonprofit. And if you can roll with the punches and have a good attitude about it, then that to me really stands out for an employee applying for work in this type of space.
That's great. Yeah. And have you experienced also remote work in a way, like with your team?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually just talking with one of my team members about this morning, because this, for a lot of my team, I'd say actually most of my team. Oh, excuse me.
No worries. I mean,
walking at the door.
No worries. I don't have my cat around, like,
yeah,
at the moment. And I was, my fear was like,
sign on my door that says don't knock. But yeah, so I mean, we were just talking about this today, and I hope my dog barking in the background isn't too distracting. But I think for all of us, it's our first like remote work experience, so it's very interesting. So we've have a lot of conversations about, how is everyone feeling? Are you feeling isolated? So we've actually, we always have weekly team meetings that are, focused on work, of course, but also on, filling in that gap that is, we don't have the water cooler talk, or we can't just go tap on each other's shoulders and say, hey, guess what just happened? So in the absence of that, we try and connect frequently and have those, bonding opportunities. And even something we've just started is having like a team social once a month, where each of our team members gets to plan one social. Or, for one of my team members who happens to live down the street from me, which is great, we're starting to have work dates, where once a week we're going to hang out and work together in a cafe, so that it kind of eliminates that, isolated feeling. But from the most part, the general consensus is the team really loves the freedom and the flexibility to be able to go wherever. Like, for example, last week I was working from Toronto. So that's really a great flexible option that I think this generation is looking for so much more. And while there are definitely challenges, there's so many more benefits. And yeah, just a different perspective is required when looking at remote work and how you can bond your team together amidst that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we're also like at Work for Impact, a fully remote team. Yeah. Like, we work from every places in the world, and then and sometimes some of us like are changing like locations. Sometimes we meet like maybe less frequently than you, but then still, like, I think that remote work, like what these 2 years have brought, like even like with a lot of madness that came together with what happened, but then also like it brought also the chance to broaden the remote work to a wider number of workers, and it has been a game changer, I think. So and also for an organization like yours, it allows also for you to hire people also from like the other side of the country, for instance, and find talented people, like depending on they are not related and strictly related to a geographical boundary. So I think this is
you're able to like really open up your talent pool, like you said, and find the right person for the role, versus, and again, that's not something I've personally experienced, but, hiring someone because they're there. So it's been really, really great to be able to offer that. And again, like I think this generation, especially with the pandemic, it's really I think it was happening before the pandemic where people were starting to feel restless and, wanting to be able to get up. And I mean, the digital nomad lifestyle has become explosive on like TikTok and Instagram, right? Everyone's working from like Bali or Mexico or wherever it may be. And I'm super jealous that I'm working from Halifax, but it is what it is. That stuff will come. But I think it's just something that this generation values so much. And I can say the same for myself, where I'm to the point where I don't ever want to go back to an office again, full time. Like I just value this lifestyle so much more. And I mean, it's only been just shy of 2 years. So who knows how I'll feel in like another 3 years. Maybe it'll drive me nuts. Who knows? But for right now, it's all positive, with the exception of a few hurdles to get adjusted to.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. So, and, but then like Mind Your Plastic lives in Canada. But if there are people abroad that want to support Mind Your Plastic, how they can do that?
Absolutely. I mean, we all know that while Mind Your Plastic's focus is specifically on Canada, it doesn't mean that this isn't a global problem. I don't know, I assume, but I think we all know that plastic pollution is a problem. There's no secret there. So even when it comes to how, like even yourself in Europe, right? So how you can support the mission as a nonprofit, of course, donations are incredibly important to the work that we do. So even when it comes to the Circular Economy Ambassador Program, educating youth is incredibly important. And this is provided to students completely free of charge, and the teachers. So it's all just based on donations received and grants received and whatnot. So $20 helps to fund one student's education in this. And so donations go a long way, but even recognizing that that's not always feasible for everyone, sharing the mission, following on social media and sharing what you find there, even just engaging and reaching out if you see something cool that's happening where you're from. Just because it may not be happening in Canada doesn't mean that it can't serve as inspiration for something that could happen in Canada. So we're all connected through this issue. So regardless of where people are geographically, we love to hear from everyone, just because I think, again, we're not going to solve this problem in silos. So we all really do truly need to band together to make this global impact.
I just wanted to flag a comment and to highlight a comment from Diane that she's a big fan of the Circular Economy Program. So I just wanted to share with you this big shout out. So
hey, Diane. I think Diane's joining us from the Arctic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I have another question dropping in. So around the world, seems the people the people suffering greatly from environmental issues are in poorer areas, or just let me show you the comment here. Okay. So you can read as well. I mean, because me reading in English is sometimes it could be poor. very poor experience otherwise. So from Indigenous communities, so any more vulnerable situations, and they are actually the people who contributed the least to the problem. So this is something that we have seen also with a previous conversation. So actually the Western world is the one that is polluting the South. Southern part of the world. We'd love to hear from Natasha her take on the inequality of the impact plastic pollution has, and specifically from her experience in Canada. So
definitely, and thank you so much for the question, Rita. And I wonder, sorry, there we go, just trying to put it down there. So great question. And you're absolutely right. And I see it all the time when the big thing to do to have an impact here is to do cleanups. And people are always expecting, because they hear that this issue is so pervasive and so massive, that here in Canada, we're going to pull thousands of pounds of garbage. And perhaps that's true in certain areas, but you just don't see it like you do in some of the southern countries, or even the Eastern Asian countries, where everything piles up. And you're right, that is often, it's the lower income areas that are facing the issues that are caused by, us in Canada and in the US. Most of this plastic is produced and used by the Western world, and it's affecting these areas. And that's why the education side of things is so incredibly important. And that's why, again, we've, in the Western side of the world, at least, I can speak to the fact that we rely so heavily on recycling. And recycling, in theory, is amazing, and it has potential to be fantastic, but at the scale and with the complex mixed materials, it's just simply not feasible anymore. Perhaps back in the 80s, when truly started taking off and that messaging became so apparent for us growing up during that era. But it's just, that's simply not the case anymore. So that's where Mind Your Plastic and many other environmental NGOs are trying to raise the alarm, where it's like, it's no longer about recycling. It is about reduction, because while us here in Canada, we don't see it. We see some garbage. We see cigarette butts on the beach. We see things washing up that, like water bottles and straws and things like that, which is like not great to see, but minor in comparison when you see what's happening in like Honduras or in, the Philippines or anywhere like that. Even looking at For Ocean, what they're doing. I don't know if anyone has watched their stuff, but they're in multiple places around the world, in these third world countries, collecting these rivers of plastic, and it's awful. So it really does come from a wage disparity and just a socioeconomic, where you see the lower income areas ultimately paying the price for our carelessness. So really, again, that's one of our big focuses, is it's not about recycling anymore. It's about what is necessary in your day-to-day life, and how we can focus on eliminating unnecessary to begin with. So no more single-use plastics or compostable plastics or recyclable plastics. We truly need to find better alternatives and focus on more of that circular economy, and reusables in its truest form, and not in the the greenwashing that I spoke of earlier. And then again, bringing awareness to what's happening there as a way to drive that message home, because no cleanup is going to solve this problem now, unless we, this isn't my term just to coin, but turn off the tap on the plastic that's going into our environment. Some important stats to think of is 1 dump truck of plastic enters our ocean every single minute. And if by 2050, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish, but unfortunately in some communities that's already happening. So that's where we as the producers and the users of all these materials truly need to open up our eyes and make a difference, so that we can stop putting our burden onto other countries that don't have the resources.
Yeah.
Long-winded answer, but
no, I mean,
it's a big answer.
It made totally sense. And like, we need to switch to another type of art. We need to recycle, reuse, or reinvent. I don't know.
Even reduce is the biggest one. I talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if we still produce kilos of plastic, each one of us, I mean, especially in the Western world, we produce kilos of plastic.
5 pounds of plastic per person per day.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to stop it. And also the pandemic has raised incredibly the amount of plastic around us. So we'll be heading over to your website. And I know, because you have a lot of tips and have a lot of activities. So I remind to the audience the website, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, mindyourplastic.ca.
Nailed it.
Okay, and so over there you will find all the information about Mind Your Plastic, and all the tips and all the activities, and you have a beautiful blog, and over there you will find meaningful information, and you can stay up to date to everything that is happening at Mind Your Plastic, and not only. So I do you want to add like a last last piece of advice for our audience?
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, in terms of like, how you can stay connected to us, we truly love hearing from anyone and everyone about their journeys towards, eliminating plastic pollution. It's a really tricky area to navigate, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, again, or things that you've seen that are going well in your community or that you think are different, feel free, share it with us, whether you reach out to our general inbox, which is just info@mindyourplastic.ca, or on our socials. So we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, all at Mind Your Plastic. And then Instagram is probably the platform that we use the most, which is mindyourplastic.ca. So please feel free to reach out to us there. We love to hear from you. And again, this is an issue that requires all of our attention and all of our collaboration. So don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And you're a great organization. Like, you have open arms and always open to hear and listen to new recommendation from the people. So I love this. If you want, you can subscribe to our newsletter so you can receive updates, and you can watch the space because we'll be having like a more live session with other for-purpose organization. But then for now, like, thank you to Natasha, and for sharing the beautiful story of Mind Your Plastic.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who tuned in and who will be tuning in.
Yes, and who said, like, maybe we will jump in another session soon together.
Absolutely, would love that. Great chatting with you, Beatrice.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.